Hello, everybody, and welcome to the podcast. I'm Joe Gould. I'm here with Adam Winters, the old man himself, and we got just a doozy of a film today. Captain America, technically from 1990, kind of not the most accurate for us here in America, though.
It's a strange beast. You can tell it wants to be more comic accurate than what they did in 1979, but not quite.
Inaccurate for all the wrong reasons. So this movie had a $3 million budget. It released in 1990 in the United Kingdom and 1992 here in the United States. What a wacky world we live in.
When you say released, videotape?
Yes, so Captain America, it would make sense for it to have a limited theatrical release internationally. I think I said that backwards. Let me try again. It had a limited theatrical release in international markets. And in the US, it went straight to video well after that. Makes sense to me.
Who was this movie made for? Why was it made?
Well, I think all of these Marvel pre-bankruptcy movies kind of had a similar theme of trying to make a cash cow out of an IP. Though I'm not sure how popular Captain America was in 1990.
I think they worried about that even in 2008 or whatever, when they did First Avenger. Weren't they considering renaming it in different territories?
Something like that.
Yeah. G.I. Joe had that problem.
Yes, it did. So in terms of the production, it was just as convoluted as the movie. So the film rights were originally purchased by Universal Pictures, and they wanted to make a full-length theatrical film with Jeff Bridges as Captain America.
Oh.
And that didn't happen.
Ironic.
And then the rights were sold to the Cannon Group, their founders Menahem Golan and Yorhem Globus in 1984. I don't know if I pronounced those names right.
Are they Italian?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you. And according to, this guy's name was Stan Hay, a British television writer. The film would involve a stolen Statue of Liberty by an elderly Red Skull who has been aided by a female death cult. And Steve Rogers working as an artist.
Okay. Comic book lore inspired by the 79 movies.
Yes. So Golan left Cannon in 1989, and as part of his severance package, he was given control of, I never heard of this corporation before, but 21st Century Film, not 20th Century Fox, and he was allowed to carry over the film rights to the Captain America character.
That's what's on the credits, 21st Century Films.
Sly name, by the way.
Whatever happened, New World Pictures, or New World Films, who did Punisher and owned Marvel? What happened to them?
I don't think they were part of this because it looks like the rights had been initially sold to Universal well back in the day, and actually they may have, I'm trying to remember now, they may have been the ones to produce the made-for-television movies.
They did all of those.
Yeah. So Captain America's rights apparently had been kind of tied up since the 70s. So Golan hires director Albert Puyen. I may not be saying that right, and he's no longer with us. He died a few years ago, and he was brought on board to work with a script by a guy named Tolkien.
Oh,
not of Lord of the Rings fame. And so yeah, you watched a streaming version of this film, right?
A very much non-authorized YouTube upload that's been around for about 7 years. I don't want to out anybody, get them in trouble. But I imagine if it hadn't been copyright stricken by now, maybe it's going to stay a while.
So apparently, there are two versions of this movie.
Ooh.
And I recognized this when I was looking at the notes on how it was received. Rotten Tomatoes gave it its average rating on Rotten Tomatoes is 3.7 out of 10. It's got an approval rating of 12%.
That's the number of people that liked it, right? 12% gave it a thumbs up or whatever, the fresh tomato, I guess. In quotes, lacking a script, budget, direction, or star capable of doing justice to its source material, this Captain America should have been left under ice. Ooh, in Alaska.
But then it says, and I see this on the wiki, many reviews and publications stated that the film was not quite as bad as many reviewers had said, and that the director's cut was better than the studio version. So there's a studio version, and then there's the director's cut, which according to an IGN review is said to be on the collector's edition version, which is what I watched.
I was tempted to buy it, but
I paid too much for it. And I will say, so I remember when this movie came out on Blu-ray. I saw it in the store. I was very poor back in that day, but I said to myself, I'm going to probably regret not buying this now.
Yep.
And I'll probably pay more later. Now, I don't remember what the price was when it came out, but it's probably $15-20. I don't know. I paid $35 for this version.
That's pretty good though for the going rate. Is it an international release or is it the U.S. market?
It's release? The U.S. market one. Okay. I think they shipped it from Canada though. It was new. I did open the shrink wrap. I kind of questioned. I'm at the point now where I'm not poor enough to worry about whether or not this is worth $40 or $50 in the future. But so I don't know. The version I watched was 97 minutes.
And that's close. I was thinking.
So I'll be. Go ahead.
Well, I don't remember the YouTube runtime, but I was thinking 1 hour 47 minutes.
Well, maybe you got the director's cut. I don't know. So I didn't realize that until today when I was doing some more notes on the movie. I watched the movie the first time just before Labor Day weekend, and I did a fast forward version of it today to kind of refresh the scenes to me. And I was looking at some notes, and that's when I saw that there actually was a director's cut versus a standard studio version.
In a lot of cases, though, the director's cut has about the same runtime. It's just maybe there's alternative scenes or different shots or something like that. I don't know in this case.
Yeah, so I'm not sure. So they finished filming it in August of 1990. The dates were released at that point, but it didn't happen, and the film went unreleased for 2 years in the U.S. before debuting direct-to-video and on cable television. So it's possible that all the stuff we see online and on disc is the director's cut, and it was the cable television version, which was different.
Yeah, what did they put on in the UK since they released it there in 1990, didn't they?
The UK, it got released in 1991.
Oh, huh.
Again, I don't really know. Interesting. In the Philippines, the film was released as Blood Match,
Ooh.
As part of a double feature with a Snoopy film. And
Which
they
one?
miscredit. I don't know. The poster miscredits Jean-Claude Van Damme as the martial art instructor.
There's a martial art instructor?
I guess he's on the poster. It's kind of like those German posters of the Godzilla films. You know, they put a few random characters on there, give it a name from another character, and ultimately you're publicizing 3 or 4 things that aren't in the movie in hopes to get to see the one thing that is.
Huh.
So one other note before I guess we get into the plot. The director, Pune, I guess. He died a few years ago. He initially wanted 2 different actors to play Rogers and Captain America.
Yeah.
He wanted Matt Salinger, who did play him, as the pre-Super Soldier Rogers. And he wanted Howie Long to play post-Super Soldier.
The retired NFL player. Not Howie Mandel, right?
Yeah, the football player who I don't know was retired in 1990.
Oh, you're probably
not sure about that part.
Huh.
And he also wanted Captain America to use his black tactical suit, which was what he was wearing in the comics at the time. Both these things got rejected by Marvel. They only wanted one actor, and they wanted him to have his classic costume.
So Marvel was okay putting Daredevil in an all-black suit with no horns, but they drew the line on Captain America and the whole U.S. agent saga.
I suppose so, and I mean, for what it's worth, I never cared for the black suit. I'm happy they got this suit. It's nice to see this suit attempted. I will say that.
It looks okay in certain still photographs.
Yes, though not in the one on the back of the Blu-ray. Very poor angle on the ear.
Let me talk about the costume designer. She deserves to have her name named. Heidi Kaczynski. I looked up briefly on the internet, and she is credited with 3 different quote-unquote films, maybe 4. Like the fourth one just happened in the last couple of years. A lot of TV work. But let's just say she didn't do a whole lot of film work after her involvement on this one.
I can't say I'm shocked. So there was a special feature interview thing, a series of interviews really, on the Blu-ray. And they talked to the director, they talked to Matt Salinger, and I think that was it. But they had some good stuff. They did feel like the movie fell short of the script due to the budget. The budget was definitely the scapegoat. There are some things with the script which I don't understand. And
is this still involving the Statue of Liberty? Is this in the script?
No. This is the movie as they filmed it. So they were disappointed that they didn't have the budget for proper fight scenes, that kind of thing. But I have to say, the 3 primary problems I have with this film, from a visual perspective, is Captain America's costume has rubber ears, and I don't mean the wings. He literally has rubber ears, which the director says he didn't think anyone would notice. But basically, he said Matt's actual ears just didn't look very good in the costume. So what I'm guessing, I can believe that. So the way the costume was made, it's like a big rubber suit. So I don't know how they fit around his ears. So that may have been a legitimate problem.
Yep.
And I will say, I watched this as a kid on a grainy VHS, and I did not notice it then. So it could be the case as the definition has gotten higher and the screens have gotten larger, that we kind of could sneak away over a kid noticing later on becomes very obvious.
If that's the case, though, the cinematography has to do their best to make you not notice. Then they can't focus on certain profiles for too long.
Agreed. And there are certain scenes where they do a good job of that. And then there's a few where it's just too close, So anyways, we can talk more about that. But the second problem I have is that you don't get the Red Skull with a red skull for most of the movie. And the director said he just didn't think people would want to look at it for the entire movie.
Did Scott Pollum, he didn't want to do makeup every day or what? He was too beautiful without it?
No, he did makeup anyways every day. But they said the director just didn't think the audience would want to look at the actual Red Skull for the entire movie.
That's right. So he's in like a modified Red Skull. It's like Red Skull with Joker makeup on. As in like the 1989 film.
I can't tell if it's a rubber mask or some prosthetics with makeup on top.
That always looks worse to me.
Yes. And then my third problem with the movie is that the Red Skull has a nose.
Oh, that was the least of my problems.
Well, from a costume perspective, that's what I'm saying. Like,
all right.
Like, as in, like, this was a bad idea from the beginning. Why would you give him a nose? I suppose you can't do the later face where he looks almost normal without a nose in the first part.
Maybe somebody misheard Stan Lee when he said, shouldn't he have a nose? To quote the whole Iron Man debacle, allegedly.
But had he not had a nose, I didn't think that the Red Skull looked horrible in the first scene he was in. For 1990, I mean, just be clear.
No, I mean, once the Red Skull was in costume, I much preferred his look than I did anybody else in costume in the movie, I think.
Well, you would be disappointed. But also, you would take solace in that after that initial scene, you don't really get anyone in a true costume that's not been battle damaged for the entire rest of the movie.
We see a whole lot of the President Kimball, and I'm wondering, he has a much higher inflated role in this movie than I would have expected. Played by the actor Ronnie Cox, who I'll admit, I didn't recognize him, but he was, at the time of this movie, he might have been the biggest name attached to the picture, either him or Ned Beatty, because he'd been in Deliverance, and Ned Beatty was in that too, the whole... less said about that, the better. But, yeah, I guess he was a recognizable name, and they figure we're going to put Ronnie Cox in action scenes, even though you would not expect a U.S. president to be in any of these kind of action scenes. And they're kind of like lame action scenes, too. Like, when he and Captain America are sneaking around the Italian castle, he goes in front of Captain America, even though Captain America has the shield. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I just didn't realize that there had been a sequel to The Christmas Story prior to the one that just recently came out. Like, did they get that whole cast for this movie? This is like this is one of Ralphie's dream sequences.
There have been 2 sequels to A Christmas Story, unfortunately.
I know, I've seen them both. Yeah, I don't consider the first one a true sequel. I'll consider the second one, because it's got the actor, but I don't consider the first one. But anyways, this movie would be much better off. Like, the old Bob Newhart show where after his second series, he gets hit in the head.
Yeah.
And he wakes up and he's in the bed with his wife from the first series.
Uh-huh.
We needed Captain America to get hit by a rock, or Sam, who unfortunately died, I think, in this movie. But if Sam hadn't died and got hit by a rock, he could have woken up Christmas morning with a Captain America figure and a little Red Skull thing. And this could have been a dream sequence. And it could have been Christmas Story Part 2.
So let me go on record. I love Darren McGavin in just about everything I've seen him in. Obviously, The Christmas Story, probably his most famous role. He's very good in The Natural, was Robert Redford in the baseball film. How about that? Both Robert Redford and Darren McGavin end up playing Captain America villains in different movies. And his TV show in the 1970s, the Night Stalker, very interesting little show, was Darren McGavin. But I feel like he is wasted badly in this production.
Well, he acts like he did in the dream sequences in A Christmas Story.
The fake Southern accent or whatever he's trying to do.
Well, and just, he's just hamming it up. Like, he's not taking it as a serious scene.
It's unfortunate. I guess, you think that was direction, or did he just decide this is how I'm going to play the part because it's a comic book movie?
I think he said, screw it. He saw what was going on around him. He's like, I'm not trying too hard on this.
You think he showed up hammered every day on the set? He's just...
I think I would have.
Now, hold on now. Let me say one thing about this.
but we can come back to this if need be. When I watched the credits, it had a lot about filmed in Yugoslavia. And I'm thinking 1990 in Yugoslavia? What in the world?
Yeah, they said it was cheaper. They wanted to do Italy for obvious reasons, but couldn't afford it.
Yeah, I guess it's cheap because stuff is blowing up around you, or it's about to anyway.
Well, maybe they thought they'd get some free scenes. They would have to do their special effects.
Yeah. I should mention briefly, they credit a studio for the special visual effects. Now, I'm not sure how many visual effects there were in this movie. I assume it was that rocket that almost hit the White House. It is credited to Fantasy 2 Film Effects. And the 2, I don't know where the 2 comes from. It's Roman numeral 2, Fantasy 2 Film Effects. They did a kind of a terrible job on this too, if they went out and got that service.
Yeah, I don't know on that one. So one casting question I have, I didn't think this when I was watching it, just to be clear, but on the Wikipedia, on the cast, it has Kim Gillingham as both Bernice Stewart and Sharon.
Yes.
Was that the same actor? I didn't catch that.
So here's the one thing I'm not sure about. I'm pretty sure, because you got young Bernie in the early part of the movie. She's very briefly there. I guess she's fiance of Steve Rogers. And I'm thinking, Steve, why are you signing up for this experimental government thing? So what if you got a limp? So what if the draft board ejects you? You got Bernie? The war's almost over, Whatever. So yeah, Bernie, there's Bernie in the beginning. I thought it might have been an old lady, but I guess it's old makeup, right?
No, it's her, and I initially thought, I wonder if her daughter is her, but then they showed old man Bernie, and
old woman Bernie.
I said, nope. Well, I said, no, that's her. That's just her in makeup. And then so I said, they just found someone who looks similar.
But she also plays Sharon, whatever Sharon's last name is. I'm guessing it's not Carter in this movie.
Yeah, Sharon, not Carter.
Okay. She ain't no Agent 13, I'll tell you that. She might shop at Apartment 13, but maybe not Agent 13.
Yeah. So one other thing on Bernie is, as I watched this movie, I thought they were saying Birdie.
Birdie. Yeah.
Which would have made sense back then, more than Bernie.
I think that's a comic
I guess you wanted a weekend at Bernie's,
though.
but...
Isn't that a Bernadette?
If I call her Birdie throughout the movie, or throughout the review, that's where I was coming from.
I'd just say there is a Marvel page dedicated to a Bernie something. I'm not sure what her married name is in this movie either. They just credit her husband as Jack. He doesn't get a last name in the credits.
Boy, what a poor guy.
Oh, man. He probably had no idea. I mean, it's like... And Bernie even tells Captain America in 1990, she's like, I waited for however many years, but I wanted to have kids.
She got to be 38, and she's like, I can't wait any longer.
And the implication is Jack is a good guy, but she just married him for the childbearing benefits.
She more or less says that.
Oh, man.
He's a nice guy. He treats me well.
Oh,
he loves the girl.
He's the first guy. First guy to get shot, too, but he lives at least, right? He does.
Yeah. What a mess.
Why do you think they put a line of dialogue that said Jack lives, but the Ned Beatty character dies off, even though it's kind of off screen, I guess, when he dies off?
I don't know why he needed to die, or why Jack needs to live for what it's worth. Pick one or the other. Are the cooks, are they competent, or are they not?
Oof. They remind me of like a Barbie Dreamhouse cosplay group that just goes around. Somehow they know exactly where their targets are in the world, whatever country they're in.
Oh, they know where they're at. They have a very fast jet to get them there. They're quick movers.
And it's 2 guys and 2 girls, right? And one of them is the Red Skull's daughter. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Valentina is what her DeSantis. By the way, that's the Red Skull's real name in this movie, DeSantis. Tadpole DeSantis.
From Italy.
Tadpole?
Why do you think they made him from Italy? I can find absolutely no reason why they would need to do that.
It seemed to me they had a lot of Italian actors already in the cast, judging by the names in the credits. So,
do people think Americans can tell the difference between an Italian and a German?
Especially not in 1990.
I mean, we think Tom Holland and Christian Bale are from America.
That's true. They fool us. We think Mr. Wolverine himself, Hugh Jackman. We said that's an American or Canadian.
Yeah.
But he's not either.
No. It's like, there is no reason. They didn't even film it in Italy. Like, once they weren't able to film it there, they lose even more reason to do it. But it's like, there's no point.
and making an Italian Red Skull. And they kept him a Nazi. It's not like they just didn't want to talk about Nazis.
Right.
Because sometimes when you see these adaptations of Captain America, they just make it some other kind of fascist group, but they don't actually call them Nazis. I don't know if it's because they don't want to acknowledge them and give them that much credit or what, but it's like they could have made it Hydra. They could have done like 20 different things.
I was paying attention.
Making him Italian. It's like, what?
I was thinking they might have used an alternate swastika, like a fake swastika, but no, it was the real Nazi swastika in their banners. So, yeah, it's curious they didn't just go Hydra, because that, I don't know what the Red Skull's motivations really are either, because the way the movie opens, he's the victim, except at no other point in the film are we supposed to have any sympathy for him. Even in the resolution, which is a callback to his origin, nah.
They had a window to make him a little bit more sympathetic at the very end of the movie.
They didn't do it.
And they chose not to take it. And that's fine. I have no problem with that. But it's an interesting take on the character in terms of like how the character arc. It is an interesting character arc, but I can't get over the Italian thing. I couldn't get over that as a kid. Like, why is there an Italian Red Skull on my screen?
So he's a prodigy child, right, in the movie here, and the Nazi somebody group, whether it's the Italian faction or what, they bust into his house during his piano recital. They grab him, they shoot all his family members while a recording is taking place, and they whisk him up. This is like 1937, right? Isn't that what the screen says? How old do you think he is?
Yeah, so 7 years later was 1943. So yeah, 36-ish, 35, yeah, something like that.
How old do you think the Red Skull is when he first fights Captain America? And how old is Steve Rogers supposed to be at that point?
So Project Rebirth happened 7 years later in 1943. So let's say in 36, well, let's back up. Let's say that the Red Skull was in his early to mid 20s, which I think is what they're trying to pass off Steve Rogers as. So we'll say at the youngest, we'll say 22. We'll say 22. Right. So that would put Red Skull at age 15 when he got abducted.
All right.
He didn't look 15.
He looked younger, but, you know.
Now, he looked like they got like a 12-year-old.
Yeah.
So I don't think they got that quite right. But it would make sense that Steve Rogers would have been, well, I mean, I guess he could have been as young as 18, but
he looks older.
The Red Skull does not. Well, he looks older, and the Red Skull definitely looks older. I guess you could attest that to the face.
It's just
based
odd
off
to
the
me
better-looking Red Skull that we saw.
They're basically they're both in their younger 20s when they meet the first time, and then Red Skull has to age another 45 years or so by the time they meet the second time.
Yeah, if you consider his hair dyed jet black, then it's probably about right. But again, I don't know if we ever really got a good feel for what his face is supposed to look like.
Yeah.
So which looked better, the Red Skull or the Red Rat?
Oh, the rat. Oh, I love the rat. Thank you for bringing that up. I would have forgotten about it. The Marvel movies these movies do a good job with those little creatures, or the pets in these films are more interesting than the humans, I think. I wanted to see that rat attack somebody.
I don't think it had capability of that.
It's an animatronic, right? So it's not a visual effect.
Well, I wasn't sure if it was animatronic or stop motion.
That's pretty good stop motion.
Well, you're talking 3 or 4 seconds, so it wouldn't have to have the best team, just a lot of time to get 3 seconds right.
I hope they didn't blow too much of their $3 million budget on that little rat. They didn't use much. They could have just gotten by with photographs, save money.
Well, I'm thinking they could have got a little rubber toy that you can move the legs on and the tail, and you can do a stop motion, like 3 seconds of it, kind of slight movement. I should go back and look at that.
It's a good little rat. Nice. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I needed more of that in this movie.
So, in creating the Red Skull, one of the scientists, I don't know if they just didn't tell her, but she gets very upset that they're going to do this experiment on this child. And she runs away from home, so to speak, and goes to work for America, and they form Project Rebirth.
She jumps out of the castle window and maybe swims to America or something like that. I don't know.
Well, there's this an ally country over there got her over here.
Yeah, sure.
So they've decided that they're going to use it on Steve Rogers because they can fix any disability and make someone twice as strong and twice as intelligent.
Yeah.
And they based that off the rat. Apparently the rat got twice as smart and twice as strong.
They should have had some files on Tadpole DeSantis. See how that would have increased things.
So they go to this little house in California, and
always California again. Yeah.
That's the American place they can shoot.
Oh, yeah.
But so they go in this house, and they give us a red herring. There's this little pale white boy with a red nose and an oversized T-shirt walking through this house. And I thought, he seems a little young to be Steve Rogers, but he fits the bill.
Yeah, I was thinking, the first person they show you, your brain attaches significance to that.
Little pale white kid with blonde hair. It's like he looks just like he came off the comic page. But nope. We see Ralphie's mom giving the adult Ralphie a pep talk and gives him his dad's old medal and tells him to be as brave as his dad was and be careful and not shoot his eye out this time. Glass is getting expensive.
I imagine that was a little bit rare in World War II when a father and son both go into the service. I mean, I'm sure it happened, but I just imagine that would be not common. Who knows?
Yeah, man. I just, who knew that he had Ralphie's mom was his mother? I don't think she has a name in this movie.
I didn't read it on the credits, but Steve Rogers' parents, they don't have a whole lot of Marvel Comics lore, do they? Except for that point when they altered history to turn Steve Rogers into a Nazi because of his mother at one point. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Never read it.
Don't really care to, except as a train wreck, but hey.
No, that was a mistake. So Steve here is apparently a decrepit little child who looks like he weighs about 220 pounds, 6'3", 6'4", and they do make him have a leg problem, and they say I guess he had polio.
Yeah.
And I think they tried a little too hard. They should have modified the dialogue and not act like this guy is some weakling.
He doesn't look like a weakling. Yeah.
Well, he doesn't look like he grew up with polio either.
No.
I don't know why they couldn't just give him a leg disability.
Yeah. They
changed all the other stuff, and they don't change this. We can have an Italian red skull, but we can't change Captain America's background story so we can explain how we have a 6'3", 220-pound Steve Rogers. Because we don't have CGI, and we want the same actor.
Yeah, he looks like the guy that you wouldn't be afraid if he was chasing you, but if he ever caught you, you don't want to mess with that fella.
Yeah, you can outrun him, but don't get caught taking a hit. And so they're doing a send-off party, but he notices his girl, Birdie/Bernie, is not there, and he hobbles off to find her, and she says, "I'll wait for you forever and ever and ever and ever until I need a kid."
By the way, again, Steve, why are you doing this? Why are you volunteering for a government experiment? Why are you doing it, Steve?
I don't know. They didn't really explore that. And then he hops in the car, or the taxi, or whatever, with the scientist lady.
Yeah.
Who knew that Steve Rogers smoked cigarettes?
I forgot about that scene. Is that supposed to have any significance? Like a character arc?
I just think everyone smoked cigarettes back in the day, and they didn't think about the fact that Captain America might not.
You would expect in 1990 there would have been some anti-smoking message, because they're not above working political messages into this film.
Oh goodness, it's the original Green Deal.
Did you notice in the credits, it even says, "Please support the Environmental Protection Act of 1990, which I guess if this film didn't air until 1991, kind of a...
92 in America.
Ooh. Well, I think it was a UK act, not even a United States deal. Like, it was England, Wales, and Scotland about emissions and waste disposal, something like that.
Yeah, if I hadn't been going away for the weekend, I would have looked that up, because this is one of the last things I saw before I went on the trip, and I was intrigued, but didn't have time for it.
So there is an environmental protection treaty subplot. It doesn't matter a whole lot for the sake of this movie, other than get characters to Italy or get them to Rome. But yeah, the smoking thing is odd. Like they didn't try to say, "Oh, you'll have to give that up once you're a symbol of America for impressionable children," or whatever.
So then we get the scene about a week later in an underground cavern beneath a diner.
That's pretty great. I like that.
Yeah, so they turn him into Captain America with some of the weirdest, lamest special effects I've ever seen in my life. It's like they got some blinking lights. They got some green mutagen on the wall, which we assume they're pumping into him. They try to do the Lou Ferrigno hulking out effect. But yeah. I think they're just changing where the camera angle is, because I don't see any growth. I see a wiggle.
Canonically, how do they grow Captain America? They got the serum, but how do they administer it?
I think it was probably, minus the blinking lights and things, I think they did inject him with a serum, and he does, functionally speaking, Hulk out like Bill Bixby in the Lou Ferrigno. That actually is pretty accurate.
Because in the MCU movie,
there's no growing in this scene.
They introduced something called Vita Rays or something like that. Like special rays. I don't know if it's radiation or what.
I have read the original comic, or reprint of it, obviously. So I can't recall about lights. I do know there was a serum. But yeah, it was a pretty lame effect. And it makes sparks for some weird reason. I don't understand it either. And of course, after they do this, there's a spy in the room and he shoots the scientist and shoots Steve.
Oh, let's linger there for a second. Can we linger on the spy?
I'll let you linger and I want to ask something first. We get a lot of weird ear pulls in this movie.
I was going to bring that up. I think it's significant.
So the guy with the gun had a little red-haired runt escort who's walking through the facility, and it's the little runt that pulls his ear. And he does it later, but does that part get resolved with him?
Yes, I think that's Darren McGavern's general character as a younger fellow, suggesting he's in on it from the beginning.
Oh, so that's okay. That's
because you noticed. Do you remember he did it in Italy when he's talking to the president?
Yeah, well, he also did it when they were looking at Steve Rogers in the hospital.
And I'm assuming because the cast has it. I didn't even notice this till I read it. But they have General Fleming, which is McGavern's character name. But they introduce a young Fleming who's played by Bill Mumy. So it makes sense because the army personnel, the young guy who brought the so-called ambassador from Washington, it was orchestrated as a plot the whole time. Does that make any sense to you?
Well, no, it makes a lot more sense. Now that you've pointed out that he's the same character, it makes sense. But I don't know. So he's got the ear pull as a sign to do whatever you're going to do. That he's lying,
or that he's hiding something. It's a tell.
Well, I thought maybe it was a sign, like a signal.
Yeah, but it's just his way of telling when he's not being truthful, or he's trying to conceal the truth, since he's a two-faced traitor.
Yeah. So, yeah, that makes more sense. He's just nervous, like a tick.
Yes. Poker tell, or a pitcher tipping his hand.
All right. That makes more sense. I'm glad you were able to shed light on that.
The movie's brilliant. Who knew?
Well, it would have been nice if they had given a little more evidence that was the same person.
They wanted... Yeah, it's weird because does Darren McGavern have any scenes with Salinger? Do they interact much? It feels like there's a lot of TV interviews in this movie, which is not great, but...
I don't think so. They're at the same place at the end, but I don't remember them coming face to face.
And that's two-faced. That's a problem with this storytelling. You don't have these two characters who have a shared history, and they're antagonistic, and yet they just pass each other in the night the whole movie.
Yeah. So Captain America gets better real quick.
He got Wolverine's healing factor, right? Is that part of the deal with his powers?
It didn't look like it was working as fast. But yeah, basically.
Well, original Wolverine, when it took a little while to heal.
Okay. There you go. Yeah. So they know Red Skull's about to launch a rocket at an unknown target.
The army thinks this is a really big deal, and they send one guy who is not trained at all on this.
Yes. And with limited communication too. So they're in a plane, and he's in his Captain America costume, and it's covered up with basically an airplane suit thing. So you can see a little bit of the suit. They do a pretty good job hiding the fake ears in the scene. For the most part, you can tell the one that's on the camera most, they got it completely covered up by the thing over his head. And he finds out that he's going to be the only Captain America. No more super soldiers.
Because the notebook, right? The doctor died with the secret, but maybe she left it in a notebook too.
Yeah.
The scientist lady.
So he's scared. He's scared. But he parachutes out. He says, "I love you." And I thought he said, "I love you, Bertie." But it was, "I love you, Bernie."
He saw an eagle on the way down.
Yeah.
Swearing his love to the birdie.
Yeah. So he breaks into the facility. We get some shield throws, which, I mean, compared to the 1979 movies, they look good.
They know how to cut it a little better, and the shield does look better. I got to give them that.
So as he throws it, they immediately cut away as soon as the shield is out of his hand, but before it's out of frame. And then they show another scene where you got something being propelled that looks like a shield at whatever's being going to be hit. And then they show it bouncing back, and they cut it where he's basically right back into the hand. So for 1990 in a dark room, it kind of works.
No Captain America movie to date has delved into the question of how Steve Rogers got to be so good at bouncy shield throwing or boomerang throwing.
Well, I think it's all his time as a sketch artist that he just has so much control over his muscles in his hand. And then with the serum, it's doubled his ability.
I figured he'd be a Tiddlywinks player when he was regular Steve, but I guess not.
So from a special effects perspective, is 1990 like the worst time to have to show a shield being thrown and returned to your hand. Like no CGI yet.
Well, it exists.
But there's expectations of something looking good. In the 70s, you really didn't have to work that hard to hide the wires because it was like 240p.
I'll give you that 1990 is an odd year, especially on a $3 million budget, but I believe a similar thing was done much better by other films.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't have Batman's budget. We'll just put it that way. And I don't even know if it's the throwing of the shield, it's the getting it back.
Does it slide onto his arms when it returns?
I think he just catches it in his hand. I don't think I've ever seen him hold the thing on his arm. He's kind of awkward even when he's protecting himself.
Yeah, does he catch it in one hand at any point in the movie? I think the Red Skull catches it in one hand.
Red Skull catches it with one hand, yeah. It's not moving very fast when he catches it, though.
Yeah.
I think they lob it to him. So anyways, he breaks in, awkward effects, very dark, and you see a close-up of the skull, and he says, "My American brother has arrived."
How does he know about the project? The spies, okay, fine.
Well, I mean, they did shoot the doctor, the scientist.
Yeah,
so at this point, we're 20 minutes into the movie.
I just wouldn't think the Red Skull would be in charge of that mission, He does say Heil Hitler, the spy does, so you're not sure what the relationship is between Hitler in Germany and the Red Skull in Italy, or Mussolini or whatever.
So a very dark action scene, 20 minutes in. This is where Red Skull catches and throws the shield. They get the little punching match. It's confirmed the Red Skull has a nose. Skull stabs him with some little doohickey on his hand. Looks painful in the neck.
Yep.
And then he connects Captain America to the rocket. It says, "We're going to hit the White House. Can I be president soon?"
A little foreshadowing.
And then Steve Rogers is just an excellent liar in this film.
Ooh.
And he says, "Come here, I need to talk to you." And Red Skull's like, "Oh, there's no time." But then he's like, "Huh?" And he gets close. Can't resist. And Captain America, who was beaten up by the Red Skull previously, grabs him by the hand and says, "Sit in my lap and let's fly together." And the Red Skull can't get his hand away.
This scene.
They can't stop the rocket launch. So he pulls out the knife from who knows where. Yeah. And he cuts his hand off in like 2 seconds. And there's no blood squirting, by the way.
Yeah.
And they do like a wide angle of the skull, look like he's doing the hokey pokey with his hand stuck out. And the rocket launches, and they cut to a different scene. But what do you think about this? Most movies, they may have a main villain, an important villain with an unknown identity, and they got some kind of mask or dual identity throughout the movie, and then they get revealed as the big bad in the last fight scene. This movie does the exact opposite.
Well, you got Darren McGavin. He's got his turn late.
But but the main villain, like you see him in all his glory in the first 20 minutes. And then for the next hour and 20 minutes, you get like the dumbed down version of him.
It is disappointing.
Like this should have been the last scene of the movie.
That rocket there's nothing about that rocket that said it deserves to be the climax of this drama.
Well, take the rocket out, but I mean, this was the biggest fight scene from a stakes perspective.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Other than, in the end of the movie, you have the girl in danger, and you have multiple people in the fight. If you count the president and the Red Skull's daughter, they're all doing their own thing. Not a great.
Americans in 1990 would have been much more concerned about the White House getting blown up than the entire continent of Europe being habitable for 15 years.
That's true. Independence Day hadn't come out yet. Nobody had blown up the White House. The stakes were still high.
Yeah. So then we get to the next scene where we see, and we'll move quicker throughout the rest of this, but the future president, little kid, who we don't know that at the time, is looking out his window. They're visiting Washington, D.C. His mom says, "Go to bed." He says, "But Mom, I want to see the White House. I want to see the president. I'm going to be the president someday, Mom." He says, "Oh, little Tommy, go to bed, you little idiot."
She even calls him Mr. President at one point. A little foreshadowing.
Just like every good mother in 1990, giving their children all kinds of false hope of what you can be when you grow up. And then he sneaks out with his camera to take a picture of the White House. He doesn't get shot by Secret Service. Even though he's on the White House lawn. Though it looks like his dad works in the White House.
It was different, even though it is World War II. It was a little bit different culture.
Yeah. And then we see the rocket shooting towards the White House with Steve attached. And then right before it hits, he kicks the rocket real hard. I guess he knocked off a wing. Then it starts flying everywhere. About takes out the kid. They get a good look at each other. He gets a blurry shot at Captain America on his camera. And then Captain America flies away to land in Alaska.
Oh, it's just so bad. Even when like the rocket finally crash lands in Alaska, it is just...
Yeah. And we don't see the Red Skull's real face or an undamaged Captain America costume for the rest of the movie.
That's right. It has the rips in it. Yeah.
Do you think they just had one costume? And if it had gotten ripped up too much, they wouldn't have been able to film him in the costume at the end?
Considering that whole thing was made of likely very fragile rubber, they're really risking it every time they put him on screen.
They said it took 30 minutes to get him in a suit, so he had to give them like 30-minute heads up whenever he had to go to the bathroom.
I didn't see a zipper. I'll give it credit on this. I didn't know where the zipper was going to be. You think it was multi-piece suit? They just put on one section at a time?
Well, maybe at the waist. They also said that after a day of filming, he would have, the boots were not disconnected. He would have about 2 inches of sweat in the bottom of his costume. Can you imagine squish around in that all day? It's like having your socks wet, only no socks. And then we have the crossover between our favorite Christmas movie, and we have Sam, played by Ralphie, talking to his friend, and he believes him, and he says, "My lucky decoder ring helped you." Oh, the crossover. The Easter egg there.
Yeah, the decoder ring, it seemed to have an oversized importance to this movie. It was supposed to be the link between Sam and Tom Kimball. By the way, the kid who plays young Sam. So it's supposed to be Ned Beatty as a kid. The credits attribute it to Thomas Beatty, who would have been one of his sons. I looked up Thomas Beatty on IMDb, and he's an occasional director of independent films, worked in a lot of production, and I kid you not, his IMDb says he's always looking for work as a Manny. That is creepy.
Yeah, that is. Do you think that they tried to make him look like Ralphie?
I think that's just what everybody imagines. An American white kid in 1940, that's what everybody thought they looked like.
But he looked just like him. He could have been a stunt double in the Christmas Story.
Yeah, he needed to drink some Ovaltine. That's how he got big and strong and became president. He drank his Ovaltine after he decoded the secret message.
That's the other kid.
Oh, yeah, I guess so. Kimball, yeah, whatever. I don't care what their names are.
So Kimball dupes Sam, aka Ralphie, into this story, and apparently Sam spends the rest of his adult life trying to figure out who this blurry Captain America is.
Yeah, he becomes an investigative journalist while Tom Kimball has all this success in life. Like, we get his own little montage of newspaper clippings right alongside all the major American stories.
The rise of Thomas Kimball, elected president in 1992, and he immediately pushes the Green Deal. He wants to take out, he says we need to take our medicine or we will all die of toxins. He wants to cut back solid waste by 90% in 6 months. And Ralphie's dad, the general, shows up and says, "That's a bad idea. You ain't got no support."
Yeah.
And then immediately, Ralphie's dad meets with the Red Skull's team. And he's like, "When can we kill this guy?" So the Skull says, with his painted face and dark black hair, he says, "Maybe we shouldn't try that. It didn't go so well the last few times. Instead, let's control him with a brain implant." Was he played by Elon Musk?
Well, when he mentions the last few times, he mentions both Kennedys and Martin Luther King Jr., and he said killing them made them martyrs. That's sort of a weird subplot that seems like they should have gone farther with it if they wanted to introduce it, that the Red Skull is responsible for just about all of the major assassinations in the later half of the 20th century.
I agree. All right, so some speed plot here. The Cap is found in Alaska. He started to be thawed and he busts out. Gets a picture taken of him as he runs away. Gets put in the paper. The president sees it. He's amazed. He still has the pick. He calls Sam. His inner 10-year-old comes out. And he sounds like a nut job.
It's weird they have that kind of relationship where the U.S. president can just pick up a phone and call this journalist. I don't know. Whatever. I've never been president.
Yeah.
Who knows?
It's a shame your mother never told you that you could grow up to be president.
No, I never wanted to be president of anything. I never ran for any kind of president at any level.
So the Red Skull sees the paper while he's in a car with his daughter in Rome. He asks his daughter to take care of the problem. She says, okay. And then we have the Cap trekking through Canada. Looks like he's gained some weight while he was frozen. The helicopter with his daughter and her minions gets there immediately.
Yeah. What?
So
I was thinking
don't specify if there was a time lapse. I guess there was, because he had time to get from Alaska to Canada.
I was thinking the Alaskan team that found him was working for the Red Skull. I thought that would have made more sense somehow.
They never really say what they're doing. I guess they're a sports team. I don't know, because they weren't Eskimos and they were in Alaska.
It reminded me a little bit of them trying to pay homage to John Carpenter's The Thing, but meh. whatever.
Well, I had missed initially that they said they were in Alaska. So when I first watched it, I said, did he just get found by the Olympic team?
Ugh,
But
yeah.
I don't know. So anyways, the helicopter spots him. We see Sam driving an old truck looking for him.
Yeah.
We're 37 minutes into the movie at this point, by the way.
It's weird. The Italians get there faster than Sam does in the old.
Well, they're flying.
Okay.
He's driving. So
okay.
It's Alaska or Canada. So I'm sure there's not a straight road. But then motorcycles pop out of the helicopter. It looks like 3 of them. They chase him in the forest. They get taken out by a shield. Nice sound effect, by the way. He gets shot at. He gets in Sam's truck. Sam freaks him out, explaining the current year as they escape.
He thinks he's a spy or something.
Yeah.
It's all a plot.
And Sam's basically like, we're trying to find the Red Skull. He's using his old name. He's got lots of surgery. He's a kingpin. He's responsible for all kinds of bad things and famous people's deaths who I now realize you don't know who they are. And their next target is Kimball, the president, who you've never met or didn't know you met.
Oh, yeah.
And then Captain America pulls out his lying superpower again.
Yep.
It says, I think I'm going to be sick.
Yep. That was after he saw the vehicle was made in Germany and the tape recorder was made in Japan.
I didn't catch that. Good catch. So
brilliant movie.
He pretends to puke. Yeah, he pretends to puke. He steals the car. Then he reads a newspaper notebook. He puts on a black overcoat, which makes him look ridiculous. They play a Man Out of Time song in the background. He has dreams of his old girlfriend, runs out of gas, hitches a ride on a truck, and gets to California.
Fortunately, Bernie never left her house.
No, apparently she married a gravedigger. Gravedigger. Wrong word.
Gravedigger.
Gold digger.
Gold digger.
And apparently, he married her for the house. But she looked like a bum, so it wouldn't surprise me. And this is where I got confused as to how many characters we got this girl playing. And
Kimmy Gillingham, right? That's her.
Yeah. So he gets to the house, and then immediately a car pulls up. It's actually Bernie's daughter. And then they're kind of confused. And then old man Bernie comes out and with the worst makeup job ever.
She immediately recognizes him, and he recognizes her. It's a star-crossed love.
Yeah, and the dad looks on awkwardly. The daughter looks on awkwardly. And that's where we talked about earlier that we find out that she waited for him for 16 years. But eventually she just wanted to have a child.
I imagine Jack is in the next room while all this is going on, too. He's hearing this for the first time.
Yeah. They look at each other real sad, like,
man.
I love you, and I love you, but I'm married to this guy. It's nice. And then he says, just wasn't meant to be.
Yeah. This ain't no Peggy Carter romance, I guess. Unless Jack is just old Steve somehow. We didn't know it.
So via a wiretap of the reporter who figures out her address from a file from mail,
they immediately show up.
The bad guys know where to go. Yeah, so the bad guys know where to go. At the same time, Captain America's watching VHS tapes with Sharon, catching up on history. He says it's all true.
Are they in another house while this is going on? I forget.
I think the daughter was visiting. I think she lived in an apartment. I think that's where they're at.
That's a little creepy. Him and the daughter just went off together to watch videotapes. But, whatever.
Yeah, trustworthy guy.
Who cares?
So the bad guys show up right after Sam. They shoot people. They kill people.
They apparently do the worst to Bernie. Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get the scene where the daughter and Cap show up. And they see the tragedy. And they're sad. And they go to the hospital room. They cut to the hospital room where the dad is. And she's like, I know what he'd like. Because they make him leave.
Wait. So the decoder ring. Remember the decoder ring? Sam has to give it with his dying breath.
Yeah, so Sam asked Captain America to give it to the president because it obviously worked for him. And Cap says sure.
Ugh. He's friends with him now, even though he probably got him killed indirectly.
Yeah, well, it doesn't look like Sam holds a grudge.
Poor Ralphie. So then they go to the hospital, right?
Yeah, and they turn on the TV for the dad as they're leaving, and that's when you have a special report because they couldn't show this on film that the president has been abducted in Rome. And Ralphie does his ear pull. General's Ralphie's dad, I should say.
Yes, Ralphie's dad does an ear pull on television when he's talking about, we'll have him free in 24 hours or something like that. We'll have good news in 24 hours.
Yeah. So we're an hour into the movie at this point. Need to pick up the pace here.
Yeah, we're an hour into the podcast.
We are. Hour and 3 minutes on the pre-edit. So at some point, Captain America and Sharon find the scientist's diary. There's a fight in the old diner in the downstairs.
It's still there. How?
Yeah, I don't know. And we would describe the fight to you, but we didn't see it. We only heard the fight. There was no lighting.
Oh my goodness. Batman Begins has nothing on this scene. Talk about being too dark to make out anything.
Yeah. So they figure out that they need to go to the Red Skull's hometown and see if anyone knows his name.
And at the same time, we see that the Red Skull has the president. They give him medicines, but they can't do the surgery to put the implant in his brain for 24 hours. So the film's telling us this could last another 24 hours of film before the movie's over. And then Captain... Go ahead.
They have to point out that he had a transmitter installed in one of his rear molars, but they knew enough to remove that. It doesn't really go anywhere, but they knew they had to do that. They had to put some dialogue in there about it.
So then the president steals some acid, which I thought was poison at the time. They'll use that later as he tries to break out of his cell. And then at the same time, Cap pulls the sick car routine again.
With Sharon.
Yes, with Sharon. And she ends up calling for a taxi, which ends up being pointless because Captain gets to his old house or town, and then she's caught up at that point. So it was kind of silly.
But it's character development because he has to realize how much he needs her help to communicate with the Italian people.
Yes. And then the bad guys catch up with him. The bad guys catch up with him at this point. There's scenes which I won't describe, which the result was that they figure out where the Red Skull's castle lives, and she gets caught.
How does that happen again? Oh no! Let me. Yeah.
Sorry, she's not caught yet. That's the next scene.
They drive up to the castle. There's a confusing scene where you're not sure if she's getting cold feet or if she's trying to lead the bad guys away, who are also in their vehicles, and let Steve sneak in unobserved. But whatever she does, she immediately gets roadblocked and captured, and I'm not sure it provided any strategic advantage to Captain America in this mission.
No, she gives him a kiss on the cheek, I think, and then she throws her stuff out of the car. Then she drives, so he gets, she drives off without him, basically.
She says, "You'll do better on your own," which could be taken a couple.
I think they're still 50 miles away, by the way, at this point.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So she gets put into a cell. Red Skull's daughter listens to the recording, they found a recording of when he's got captured.
They got the original wire recorder and they took it to a repair guy who knew something about it. And then Sharon was able to record it on her Walkman or whatever, her tape player.
Yeah, they record the recording basically.
Yeah.
So they're almost ready to do the procedure on the president, but then they walk away and he breaks out of his cell from where he had put the acid on earlier. At the same time, Captain America's made some very good pace to get there, and he's climbing the wall. And there was a chase, and it gets real confusing, but the president jumps off a building to get away from the Red Skull, and he's caught by Captain America's hand. Then they have a face-to-face, and Captain America says, "You were the little boy?" And the president says, "I've been waiting for this a long time." And Captain America says, "Gee whiz." And then they go. They run away. They run off. But he does give the president Sam's lucky charm, the decoder ring.
Mention he's dead, by the way. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. And then the president says they've got Sharon.
Okay.
How does he know who that is?
That's a good question. I'm not sure the name would have come up. Weren't they in slightly different cells when they were being held?
He wouldn't know who Sharon was.
Unless she said her name or the captors said her name. I'm not sure either would have happened.
He's talking as if Captain America knows who Sharon is.
Oh, right. He wouldn't know that he knows.
It makes no sense. So the president calls for help. And he sees Ralphie's old man. He punches him with one hit. So then Captain America and the Red Skull square off. The daughter has Sharon. Sharon's way too happy. She's smiling ear to ear. The Skull gives a speech. You get a chaotic fight. People chase their appropriate opponent around.
It's a roughly edited. It's like the ending of The Phantom Menace on how quickly it cuts from one thing to the other.
Yeah.
And you'd really rather just watch the one thing of Captain America.
Oh, yeah. All kinds of unnecessary stuff going on here.
Yeah.
You got bullets. You got shields flying. You got Skull throws a chair. Ultimately, Captain America's chasing the Skull. Skull looks very much out of breath. He's not been doing his cardio.
Yeah, he's whatever, 60s? What would he be? Early 70s?
He's a super soldier.
All right. Fair enough.
So Sharon at some point overtakes the daughter. I'm not sure how that happened.
Yeah. A trained assassin, right? Like a trained assassin and a girl who goes out to buy beer for her dad. We're not sure what else she does.
Yeah. Watches VHS tapes.
Yeah, that's right.
So the Red Skull goes to the roof. And there's a piano there, and off the piano he picks up a detonator. He's about to blow up Southern Europe, and you won't be able to live there for the next 15 years. They should have had him play it.
I think he said more than 15. I thought he went for like 50 or something. He said when it's going to be uninhabitable.
Yeah, you might be right. And then we get a good close-up of the rubber ear on Captain America.
In the daylight.
Yeah. And I can't recall who did it, but the recording of his capture gets played, and the Red Skull hears it, and he looks thoughtfully at his daughter.
Yep.
And then he says, "We are both tragedies." And then Captain America throws a shield and knocks him off the ledge. He flies.
And that was Captain America's plan, to make him hesitate just long enough to hit him with the shield. Did I read that right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think they modeled him falling off of the mountaintop there after King Kong in the original 1933 film falling off the skyscraper. And he's kind of awkwardly bounces.
Well, I didn't catch that at all. Good job then. They did that.
And then on the way back, the shield whacks his daughter.
Yeah.
Who they teased the babyface turn, but no, she's ready to shoot them and detonate.
Oh, yeah, the daughter had somehow listened to the recording before anybody else did, or when she took it from Sharon or whoever.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the good guys show up. They made good time. And then at this point, basically, Cap hugs Sharon, or Sharon hugs Cap. When you want to look at, they tease that she will become the future Sharon Carter. But then the narrator takes over.
Oh,
and we see a Captain America picture, and we see the Green Deal has passed, and a off-brand Lee Greenwood song plays.
I thought it was more Bob Dylan. You think, yeah, Lee Greenwood, I can see that.
We are the home of the brave. And if I'd had more time, I would have gone back and printed the lyrics and sung them for you.
I did. I could do it if you want to. Very, very vaguely figuring it out. I'll do that on the outro.
Yeah, we'll do it on the out. And then we see they beg us to please support the Environmental Protection Act of 1990.
Yep. Most people would not have been seeing this before it was already finalized. So, whatever. Do your part. Captain Planet. He's our hero. Save the ozone layer.
So, as we rate this movie, should we do out of 5 shields or 5 rubber ears, possibly?
Yeah, I give it the rubber ears.
Okay.
Maybe we'll call it sets of rubber ears. 5 sets of rubber ears.
Okay. How many sets of rubber ears would you want to give it?
I don't remember what I gave the original 79 Captain America. I was thinking I gave it 2 or 2.5 out of 5, but I'm giving this one a 2 out of 5. A definite 2. So I'm putting it below the 79 original because I liked the aerial shots and the vehicle scenes in the original movie. And the car chase with the truck.
So if I allow myself to believe that this movie is a dream sequence from a Christmas Story sequel, then I will give this 2.5 sets of rubber ears.
Oh, okay.
But
generous.
If I'm not allowed to do that, then I have to take this as a standalone movie. I think I'm going to give it 1.5 because of the self-inflicted wounds that they took. 1.5 sets. However, so I'll say if Red Skull had been from not Italy, if they had allowed him to keep his red face for the whole movie, and if his ears had not been made of rubber, I would have probably knocked it back up to 2, maybe even 2.5. They just changed everything they didn't have to change.
Yeah. Filmed in Yugoslavia. What a weird production.
Yeah. So what did you think of Matt Salinger's Steve Rogers, though?
Mid-tier?
Yeah, he plays the character with a straight face, just like Chris Evans does, or did. So I liked his effort. His acting skills,
nothing particularly endearing about him, though, other than, he looks the part okay. But
yeah, they didn't even let him do his own stunts. He was sad about that. Bonus features.
I'm glad he was upset. He wanted to do more then. Good for him.
Got any closing thoughts on the train wreck of Captain America 1990/1992?
Most of the music was written by Barry Goldberg and performed by various other people. I saw one trailer for the movie on YouTube where they were using the orchestral theme from the first Avenger movie. And I was not sure if that was a fan edit or if some of those cues had been written way far back and just never used again.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wasn't Barry Goldberg the star of the television show The Goldbergs?
That was Adam F. Goldberg. He had a brother named Barry. And probably several other Barry Goldbergs I'm forgetting about. But that would be funny if they were connected on this.
Well, I'm glad they didn't get Dolph Lundgren or Arnold, who were considered for the role. Val Kilmer turned it down. Probably a good move.
Yeah. He could have ruined both Captain America and Batman, I guess.
Yeah. Could have been modern day Chris Evans.
Yeah.
And that was Captain America 1990. And I think we're going to do Fantastic Four, the unreleased movie, next.
This one should have stayed unreleased.
You're right. You're absolutely right.
Should have been a tax write-off.
So you're going to send us off with this amazing song, right?
Yeah, I believe the style is called nasally whine, which I guess is very popular among certain people who attempt national anthems and other things. But it was so incoherent, it made me think of Bob Dylan, but I guess also like a Lee Greenwood version of Bob Dylan. So I'll do my best with what I understand it as. Liberty and justice, every free man's point of view. We gotta keep it going now on the red, white, and blue. Sing the bell of freedom, and the people say, send the message loud and clear, peace and freedom, hey. Home of the brave, I pray to God you'll see. Home of the brave. And it just repeats after that.
All right. Thanks, everybody.